Joining us now, former Navy SEAL and Republican delegate from Virginia Beach, Scott Taylor. Delegate Taylor, good to have you.
Good morning, John. It's always good to be on your show.
Now, we got to get into General Assembly politics, your crowdfunding legislation, which I think is fascinating. I'm going to get to all that, transportation. But here's what I got to start with. It's on everybody's minds. The ISIS situation, basically burning at the stake, this Jordanian pilot. We have this president, we just had Pete Hegseth on, who said that he's choosing not to win. We seem to have no firm strategy, no firm policy. He hasn't come to Congress for a formal authorization for war. We're dropping bombs. John McCain saying we're not winning. You're a former Navy SEAL. What's the deal here?
Well, I didn't hear my good friend Pete, but I imagine he was spot on, as he typically is.
Yeah, he was spot on.
I know, with this president, we certainly don't have a strategy for much, certainly in terms of foreign policy. But I will say that, you see the Jordanian king, he's suited up and is willing to go and drop some bombs on them, and I think that's amazing, and I respect it. I would love to see our leaders who send folks to war participating. That would be amazing, like they used to. But, my type of foreign policy is like a barroom fight, John. You avoid altercations as much as possible. You try to diffuse them when you can. But if somebody hits you, you beat them into submission until it's done. So if you're going to send people over there in harm's way, then you have got to let loose and let them do their thing. And, I've been asked, I got an email yesterday asking about limited boots on the ground. And when I say boots on the ground, let me make sure that we're very clear. There are already boots on the ground in Iraq. They say they're advisors. They say they're non-combat. That's BS. John, you and I both know they're special forces. They're all combat troops. If Congress, which I think should absolutely be involved, sees fit to have limited action or action on the ground with folks, then my personal opinion is all gloves are off. These are murderous throwbacks to the dark ages. They're not a state. Personally, I think if we are to take action, they should be able to go in there and beat the enemy into submission. And quite frankly, I don't think ISIS should have Geneva Convention protection.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, it becomes...
I know that's aggressive, but here's the deal. If our leadership, which I agree that you said, that the president should go to Congress and get authorization, and if our leadership, our representatives believe that it's necessary and it's a threat to the United States, that we need to take action, if we should take action, then we need to do it with a maximum effective ability. Because quite frankly, doing it half-assed, as we're doing it now, will get people killed.
It's just making it worse. I mean, look, ISIL is taking their prisoners, chopping off their heads, and setting them on fire alive. We're worried about the fact that some of our prisoners in Cuba might not be getting 3,500 calories a day. I mean, think about it.
Look, James Woods, actor James Woods, I retweeted something that he tweeted yesterday. I thought it was hilarious because he's like, look, they're over there, burning this guy alive, and we're saying it's torture if you put some water in, just some water in their face. But I feel like we're in a new norm, John, and I'm afraid of this. People don't want to hear this, but
right.
I believe there will be attacks on this soil. There will be more. I mean, there's already been some lone wolves, if you will, that have tried to do things, but there will definitely be attacks on Western societies, like you saw in France. That's a new norm. It's a new phase, and you're going to see more of it. So if we're going to engage the enemy, then we need to engage 100%, relentlessly. If we're going to do it. If we see fit that we're going to do it. But mark my word, you're going to see more attacks on Western society.
Scott,
like the one that happened in France.
Scott, you're
Australia.
Right. The bottom line is everything you just said is spot on. You're absolutely right. I appreciate your sharing that with us, and I appreciate your insight and your candor. Navy SEAL. Scott, I want to get to the General Assembly, if I may. The House passed your crowdfunding bill this week, which is really neat. Now, people kind of heard about crowdfunding, so they're like, well, we already have that. Why do we need something special in Virginia? Can you share with our audience what your particular legislation does and what it means?
Sure. Thank you, John. I appreciate you highlighting. It did pass the House 99-0. It's bipartisan. What crowdfunding is, because some folks may not know what it is basically allowing a large group of people to come forth and invest in whatever product or company or radio show that you have, and this bill would allow them to invest for equity. So there are already platforms out there that allow you to invest for products or for rewards or something like that. But via 2012 federal legislation, an accredited investor, that is a guy or girl who has more than $1 million of net worth, or they've earned $200,000 or more per year for the past 2 years, they would be eligible to invest via crowdfunding for equity anywhere in the country. Well, that's not the majority of the population, of course.
Right.
So what this legislation says is that if you're a Virginian and you're a non-accredited investor, which is the vast majority of us, then you can also participate and invest in the companies that you love or think are going to do well for equity. Now, let me give you a quick scenario. So let's say the John Fredericks Radio Show wants to raise some equity.
Right.
Not debt. They want to raise equity.
Right.
So you would go forth in a platform, whether it was online or whether it was brick and mortar that has crowdfunding, and solicit investments. So you're giving up with 10, 20% of equity. And then literally thousands of Virginians who love your show could participate. Maybe they invest $100, maybe they invest $1,000, whatever it is. But now that investor, of course, gets an equity piece of the show that they love and they think is going to grow and make them money, and there are proper protections put in place for them. And then you, the small business owner, now have access to capital, which it may have been harder to go through the bank to do it, but you also have literally thousands of brand ambassadors that are obviously going to listen to the show that they're a part owner in and tell their friends to do it too. So it's a win-win for everyone. And you can invest up to $10,000 per deal per year, and then you, the business owner, can raise up to $2 million per deal per year. So there is no doubt, John, that this bill will create jobs, economic activity, and help for the American dream to be achieved by Virginians.
That's why what you've done, I think, is so demonstrative and so impactful, because it's a job-creating mechanism. Now, why don't we just play out what you talked about? So we have our show. We're in 3 markets, all right? They're profitable now. We work hard. We think we're onto something. We're building an audience. But we want to expand. We want to grow. So let's say we were to go with your example and we were to raise, I don't know, pick a number, $150,000.
$2 million.
Yeah. And we took that money and then we invested in expanding our network in throughout Virginia, went to Northern Virginia, things like that. Well, as we did that, what would we do? We'd create jobs. We'd have to have additional sales organization people. We'd have to have additional social media people. So as we're going forward, we're going to be creating jobs and putting people on payroll that didn't have a job, or they leave a job and that job opens up. At the end of the day, you're creating a new tax base. You're creating jobs for Virginians. I mean, to me, people understand job creation. It's the small businesses that create the jobs, right?
That's right, and this bill is for the little guy. And obviously it's going to be Virginians who create the jobs. We're just creating this framework to allow them to thrive. And there's no doubt that people are going to take advantage of it and grow their business, grow jobs, and other folks are going to benefit by being protected, but also gaining money on their return on their investment.
Scott, what happens now? It's going to go to the Senate. You got to pass 98-0. Is there anything else that needs to be done? And do you think that Terry McAuliffe will sign it?
No resistance in the Senate. If it passes out of the House 99-0, that's a good indication. It's probably going to do pretty good in the Senate as well, too. We'll be working behind the scenes with the senators and answering any concerns that they have. It'll go to Senate subcommittee, and then it'll go to full committee, and then it'll go to the floor for the Senate. And we anticipate a smashing success. And I had good help from Delegate Peace, Delegate Yost, Delegate Davis. They were all involved and have been for a bit. And it's a really good thing. Where the Speaker, of course, and also Delegate Terry Kilgore have helped to shepherd this through. and the speaker, if I may, I'd like to plug and look at John. I've seen good and bad leaders in the military, in business, and in politics. And the Speaker Howell is just a great leader, and I want to say I appreciate him. He actually saw fit to appoint me to the Finance Committee this year, which enables me to kill a bunch of tax raises. So we're over there killing bills that are tax raises. So I've been able to help create jobs, but also kill tax raises for Virginians. So I'm having a good session. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, one thing about Speaker Howell, he's a small business owner also, so he really understands how to create jobs in Virginia. Now, assuming crowdfunding gets through the Senate, and I believe it will, have you talked to Governor McAuliffe, and if it comes on his desk, do you believe that he will sign it?
I haven't talked to him personally, but I do believe it. I mean, in his administration, of course, you have some Democrats that were up on Capitol Hill as well, too, and one of our co-sponsors, Delegate Mark Keem, who's
right.
also been great. He has close relationships with McAuliffe's folks and their technology folks, and this is something that they're excited about, too. So I just don't foresee it being a problem. It's the right thing to do, and it's the right thing for Virginians, and I think that he'll sign it.
Okay, if I may, I want to move to transportation. There was a bill passed on Wednesday, and there was a number of conservatives not in the General Assembly but outside the General Assembly, Susan Stimson being one of them. She's challenging Speaker Howell in a primary, complaining bitterly that this was some kind of a hidden tax or an omnibus bill, basically, that would create all these toll roads and mass transit. But yet, I didn't really see that. And then when I looked at the fact that only two Republicans voted no, one being Mark Berg, and then conservatives backing it like Ben Klein, Todd Gilbert, Mark Cole, Dave LaRock, Scott Taylor. Criticism of this, how did it make any sense? What have I missed here?
Some of it, John, it's political, as you know. Delegate Berg tends to vote against a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I understand some of his line of thought, and some of it I don't, but I appreciate him, and I will say that Chairman Jones was made things available. If folks didn't understand the bill or had any questions about it, I believe they bent over backwards to allow members to ask questions and get those answered. And some of that spending that was in there, if we didn't pass it, we wouldn't be spending monies on secondary roads, which haven't had monies in them for a really long time. And Mrs. Stimson, I get her emails. They tend to be pretty negative, and I don't know if they're used for her political race or not. I really have no idea. I didn't read that specific one, so I can't comment on it. But I understand why those emails are going out. Obviously, having been in my own races, you want to use whatever advantage that you can against your opponent. But as you stated, Delegate Klein and others who are certainly staunch conservatives voted for the bill, and it was the right thing to do, and that's why I voted for it.
Look, I think it was the right thing to do. By the way, for our listeners, this was HB 1887, reforming how Virginia allocates its transportation dollars in order to increase transparency, send more money back to localities. Just in a nutshell, the bill simplifies kind of the old, complicated funding formula into three simple pots of funding, if you will. 40% for bridges and pavements, 30% sent back to local districts for local projects, and 30% to be spent on key statewide needs. Now, there are statewide needs, and that was part of why I was in favor of the Great Transportation Compromise being passed in 2013, because we have infrastructure needs in the state. And what?
Well, John, you're in Hampton Roads, and you know that we have geographical challenges. And
absolutely,
huge. And if we want to grow our economy, it's something that any business will tell you. We've got to get funding for transportation. We've got to be able to have access in and out, of course, of Hampton Roads, and to move flow, relieve congestion, and that funding formula certainly before did not benefit Hampton Roads, and we believe that this one is better for us. So that's why we voted for it.
Scott, you can't create jobs. People are not going to come in the state if you don't have simple means of transportation. If they can't truck their product or get to their office or get their children to school, they're not going to come to the state. They're also not going to come.
That being said, I think that people are right to be concerned and right to question the bill itself, and also to make sure that our funds, that are our taxpayers, are used very efficiently and effectively in transportation, not just lost or done in bad deals. And I sympathize, and I absolutely, that's why I'm here. I'm on the transportation committee, so it's something that we look at all the time to make sure that those tax dollars are being used effectively and efficiently.
All right. Well, you absolutely made the right move.